I'm Kennedy. I actually graduated from here last year. One big thing that we did for that, because I was the same way, I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. I knew what I wanted to do, but my major was so specific. I needed to find a big school that did that. Was we had an assembly, not an assembly, but like we have a lecture center here. So in our English class, we brought in senior English classes to sit in there, and our counselors presented. They made it like personal, and they had a kid who went to our state school who got all of his school paid for off of academic leadership plus sports scholarships, and they broke it all down and how we can apply for it, where we can go, our FAFSA stuff, all of that. So I think that would be a super simple answer for a lot of schools too, to come in and talk more with their students and be more personal with it too.
And as ICAP is more utilized, I think this will also help with that, since OK College Start and OK Career Guide help at least with some of the exploration, but in terms of the scholarships, that's the key. And there are databases out there that are kind of sweeping all those opportunities. We just need to have a way maybe to incorporate that in so that it is at the fingertips of every student.
And like with the scholarships, I'm actually in I'm the president of my school superintendent advisory. And so we were talking about it, and we were talking about making a class meant like just for like a counselor can be in there, and like you can just do all that stuff in one room, because it's hard to find a counselor, and sometimes your counselor can't do the things right now, but if there's someone set in a classroom with you that can help you for seniors, because like I'm gonna be a senior next year, and I'm doing a 4x4, but I have like 3 extra classes and I have nothing to do. So I think a class set where I can have somebody there helping me do stuff like that, constantly like filling out scholarships, doing tours, and someone right there that knows how to do all those things, and like with that quick of availability would be a good chance. I think that should be put out throughout more schools.
If there were more of a, like everybody passes through that, so that there is that set time, it's lasting a semester or something where there's other things that could be built in. I know you all talk about financial issues of needing to understand banking and how to read a lease contract. I mean, these are all things you guys have brought up before. And so even just incorporating there's a requirement for financial literacy, and a lot of times it's online between 8th grade and 9th grade.
I was going to talk about the financial literacy stuff. Mm-hmm. So because it's a required class, a lot of kids just go into it and don't want to learn, like, at all. And so if we were to make some kind of class that was scholarship oriented, I feel like we would almost need it to be more elective based, not like push it to be a requirement, because then you would get kids going in there who don't want to be in there and don't want to learn about how to fund their education after high school.
But do you think everyone should have that knowledge?
Yes.
So, because it could be different. It could be a career path through the military, but you still have to have someone introduce that too.
My name's Addison Roberts, and I go to Deer Creek High School. And I feel like something that's like really important is because we have college counselors from other like colleges come and visit and like talk to students, but I feel like it's not as engaging as like I feel like, or as they don't make it as important as it seems. I feel like we've had more, like, and I know that college isn't an option for everybody, or not everybody wants to go to college, but I feel like they put more pressure to have, like, I guess the military come to our school more than, like, than college. And I just feel like it's important to be, like, showing students who don't have all the financial options to attend college and show them, like, other options that they have, even if it's going to a like larger college or a like smaller one. And I don't know how to exactly like put it into words, but I feel like they don't focus on students who are living in like lower income areas, or like showing them like options of like what they can do for their future, and just saying, well, if you can't afford it, you can just go into the military or just go straight into a like lower paying job. And I feel like that just creates that kind of like endless cycle of life.
And also kind of like I was describing, you know, I didn't have parents that knew how to navigate that, except that they knew that they wanted that. So like some parents aren't even expressing that. And often then students don't know options. That's why being very concrete about that, where every student is going to have that individual career academic planning process starting at 6th grade all the way through high school, is good, but it's only as good as the school utilizes it, right? So it's like, they need to hear from you. And I think that that matters. The other thing that schools are facing is a shortage of teachers, right? So if you only have the teachers to teach the bare minimum to graduate, then it's also an extra dilemma that is very difficult to solve without solving the teacher shortage at the same time. So we got to do both because you deserve both.
On the teacher shortage, I feel like I'm not getting a great education with uncertified teachers. We should not be hiring uncertified teachers. They do not have the knowledge to teach us. I was taking a very high level science through a teacher who had her degree was in some random, just a regular business degree. She had no idea what she was doing. She was just reading the book. I dropped the class because I wasn't learning anything. It was a basic, and I just feel like it's not right for us to be taught through teachers who don't have that understanding. And I know we can't do much about with the teacher shortage.
Oh, yes, we can.
But
we can solve this if there is the will to solve it, and it takes a bold investment to do it. If you change teacher pay to a $55,000, $60,000 a year, we solve that. There are people
and
that
I feel
are ready.
like just even like if we know we're hiring these uncertified teachers, make them take a summer course, just a quick, this is how, like teachers had a 4-year degree, cram all of that into a 4-week program. And also coaches.
Yes, so important.
Them in the classroom, it doesn't always work. I had my sophomore year, my Algebra 2 teacher was the girls' basketball head coach. Algebra 2 is a hard class. I would go in, I'd need help. She was never in the classroom because she was in the gym. I could never, there wasn't a good balance between a coach and a teacher.
Okay, that is a good note. Thank you for bringing that up.
You spoke about ICAP and how much schools utilize it, and that just spoke to me because I believe in this last year, when we first mentioned ICAP, I believe it was like in our first or second meeting, I wasn't really sure what it was because I'm not really sure if we've used it that much.
Sure.
I believe we use school links to, like the website school links to utilize ICAP. I'm not really sure.
Schools can do it different ways.
Yes. So I believe last year I only took a personality quiz with it. That was the only thing that was required of me. So I haven't had that much experience with it. And looking back, I was pretty lost on what career I should be, or what career I'd be interested in. What schools should I be looking at? What scholarships do I need? So my parents and I made the decision that we were going to work with a third-party company. We paid a pretty good amount of money for them to help me through the college process. And now I feel a whole lot more confident going into my senior year, but I just know that that's not available to everyone. And I just wish that we would utilize that more.
Great point.
Yeah.
And in fact, that would be also a good community partner for us to also consult with, possibly. But you're also talking about something that's really, really important. So many kids need to start this way earlier. And so, but here's kind of, you guys are sort of in that age group of students where this was piloted with just certain schools. And then last year, I guess, was it last school year was the first year the freshmen had this as a graduation requirement. So you're kind of caught in a place where it wasn't really required yet of you. And so yet it is underscoring how it has to be equitably delivered and utilized. And it takes people in the district to be really committed to not just checking a box, kind of like what you're describing, right? Because that's really a disservice to all of the students. But I don't believe it's that people don't want that. I think it's that it's a manpower issue. And also it's finding ways to smooth it out in their district with technology and access to that and how they figure that out. But we have some really good models of where it's really working well. But that's a big school. So, a lot of people impacted. We really have to continue to just keep improving. Good feedback.
I kind of want to comment on something that you talked about in your opening speech about the state government attacking the classroom, certain offices and stuff. Since the passage of such divisive bills that are aiming to eliminate discussion of diversity in the classroom, I have never felt more scared in the classroom to discuss the importance of diversity, inclusive environments, being open-minded with your peers. And as these attacks continue and these people are running for higher offices, even to replace you, I fear for the peers below me and just friends from inclusive communities and other of different genders, different races, different sexual identities, and what they are viewing as making the classroom safer in their own opinions. It's not. It's empowering bigotry, and it really hurts my heart to see this. And then if I could just go on a completely other tangent, 'cause since we were also talking about summer vacation, last month I participated in the Oklahoma Summer Arts Institute at Quartz Mountain. And so something I realized there's 8 disciplines. A bunch of those kids, they've been doing that stuff since they were little children, young children. And I come from Inola High School, which is a rural school about 20 miles east of Tulsa. And with those kids all being well-versed in their discipline from such a young age, what really showed in the programs is the rural-urban divide of all the kids' hometowns. So something I would love to see in the future as an initiative, either from the State Department of Education or from the state legislature, is more funding for rural arts programs, especially in elementary schools. Inola Elementary School started building the foundations of an art program with my own mother before she left the teaching profession a couple years ago, and she did a really good job for what she had been dealt. But even then, as more people replace her, I have very little faith in what that program can do without the funding that it doesn't have. And so I just would really love to see more arts education initiatives for younger grades, especially in rural communities.
Oh, I love hearing you say that. There's so many benefits to a well-rounded education. Yes. Okay, good. And but also your point too, that our classrooms need to be places where every student in Oklahoma public schools know that they belong. They belong. You belong. And you are wanted and valued. And thank you for your remarks. All right, yeah.
I'm going to flip the script a little bit and jump back to ICAP. We've discussed a lot of the benefits, and while I think it's a great resource, I don't think it's accessible in an easy way. And I think one suggestion I have is to make it into an app. I think through that, students are always on their phone, and so why not make a free app that has the same elements as the websites, and so that they're just not filling out the career options or just looking for scholarships on the school. They could do it at home, at work, or wherever they are, and also add a scholarship element to it. So randomized selections around 500, 1,000 to multiple users, free of cost, for just filling out the course in a given year. And I think that it would really help students motivate to look into ICAP more.
I love that. And it also could utilize push technology where you're getting reminders like it's the FAFSA deadline for filling out, or that have you done this or that at a particular time, where then it's a little bit more uniformly applied to all of those users. This is part of the vision, and but I think that we've got to escalate that, make it happen faster for you. Yes.
On top of ICAP, because it does do career searching and all that, like we do the test and it's like, here's all these jobs. But when you look at it on a screen, you don't see what that actually does. I think one thing that my school did is we did a college and career fair, job fair. And I think on top of doing ICAP, doing a career fair would be very helpful, because when you get to actually interact with people that are in those careers, then you're more likely to have an emotional attachment to it versus seeing it on a screen and just seeing numbers and words. You don't get that actual interaction to know what you're doing, because when you just see it on a screen, it's completely different than in the actual real world and doing like internships or things such as that, like finding opportunities to do that so students actually know what they want to do instead of just seeing it on a screen like, oh, that looks cool, I might do that. So
I love it. My wheels started turning about, I wish there was a way to do, even if they were regional, like just what you described, these kind of career fairs that also plug in students, like anyone can come, but you target invitations to certain grade level or a class, particularly if you're thinking about, you know, maybe sophomores. You target to come to the career fair for internships, so that they begin thinking about that, or how to get engaged in career tech, et cetera, while they're in high school.
I think it'd be good to even start younger than even high school, because kids that are in middle school are still thinking about, you always get the question of, what do you want to be when you grow up, but you don't ever get, this is what you can be when you grow up. So instead of just getting college fairs, we should also be getting career fairs, because college, you can push college and college and college, but you don't know if that college is actually going to give you what you want out of the end of after college. So
very good. Excellent.
Going off what Jonathan said about feeling unsafe in school, I can definitely feel that, and I felt like it isn't just something that's been happening like this year or even the year before, but it's just a continuous of teachers, especially maybe like white teachers, not understanding where students come from, especially students of color, come like with issues like within the school, especially with issues of like specifically like racism. And I feel like if I do come to a teacher and I do ask for help, or if I'm saying this is what I'm feeling, this is what's going on, this is what a student says, they don't like understand like completely where I'm coming from. So instead of seeing this as like a targeted issue, they see it as, oh, well, maybe if you just talk to them about it, or maybe if you just educate them about what they said was wrong. It's like they don't want to be educated, or they don't specifically like care enough to look deeper into the issue of like what they said that it might have been harmful or disrespectful. And I just feel like if there was like diversity training with teachers, I feel like that's really, really important, so they can like, so all teachers can like fully encompass like what it means to like live in like a diverse school district and knowing what like specific students' needs. And I feel like even a course for students to understand like systemic and social issues that people of color face like every day in a classroom, at work, at school, walking down the street, and how unsafe or how dangerous like even words can like put you in a situation.
And yet then there is a law that chills all of that. That's the problem. Even if the law doesn't speak specifically to, you may not have a particular class, even if it doesn't, it's still chilling that kind of opportunity to educate. And so this is a flaw that has to be corrected.
All the topics that have been spoken about today are just things that really resonates throughout, I think, the different types of communities we saw. And I went to Girl State this summer, so I met a bunch of different people. Geraldine here was superintendent. So, and some of the things I saw was like the career issue. A bunch of, I'd say 80% of the girls I met there went to career tech schools, and a bunch of people at my school go to career tech. We have a very good internship program, and through just those experiences, whether just to like it sounded fun or it's like taking up the class time, like because we had to fill all our hours, so many of those experiences have helped people understand what path they want to go down. And I know some of the girls I talked to say they have to drive like 45 minutes one way just to get to that career tech school. So I think if we can provide more resources, like more experiences like that throughout the state, because for our town, we only have to drive 10 minutes, but it's just getting those experiences out there can really help someone navigate where they want to be in real life, because a lot of the times, unless you have hands-on experience, you don't know if you're going to like that. And a second thing was when I met this girl, her name was Holly, and after you came and spoke with the superintendent, she approached me about how her brother has dyslexia, and he was undiagnosed for so long, and that caused a lot of issues in his education, and that also caused a lot of like emotional issues. And she was talking to me about how the importance of getting that dyslexia testing to people, and how if school could either just get more resources out there, or maybe even required dyslexia testing at a young age, it could prevent some of the roadblocks that her brother experienced and a lot of other people experience. I looked up some data, and I think like 40 million people have dyslexia, but only 2 million are diagnosed. So I think being able to help the majority of people to thrive with just that simple test could really open up another pathway for so many people.
So important. I appreciate very much. Two things on that, just as a way to share back some updates. One, you mentioned the large number of people that that would have undiagnosed, but struggle with a reading learning disability, or they may just have dyslexia without a disability. And so we know that the way you teach reading, you can teach it in a way that helps everyone, including the students with dyslexia. And so you heard me talk about 10,000 teachers being trained in the science of reading. That's explicit phonics instruction that is science-based, evidence-based, that we know now through functional MRIs, how kids learn to read in cognitive development. And so if we approach it this way for the general population, we know we are actually helping a student that's undiagnosed with dyslexia instead of the opposite, which was compounding the problem. That's one. So we need all of our folks that are touching those early readers to have it. The second thing is a new law is going into effect this fall, and that is going to do every student in kindergarten through third grade will be tested for reading where they are at the beginning of the school year. If they're not on track, they'll then have dyslexia screening. And so that will help us kind of find those students early and be able to then go down another pathway if they're needing that support. So that's a big change, and it all goes into effect this fall.
Awesome.
Okay. Trinity, yeah.
Again. And I want to touch on the topic of some stuff we're not like really allowed to discuss in school. So since Oklahoma is one of the states that recently just got abortion banned completely, I think that sex ed should be taught more in school. And on top of that, like more of like a HIPAA law, because my town is very like gossip, talky like kind of town. Like it's one of those small just drama towns. So like I feel like we should be able to learn about that more, because when I learned about it, it was in 8th grade. And it was like 20 minutes, and it was like really weird, and just like I didn't learn anything at all, really. It was just jokes. And so I think since that like law has recently been overturned, we should be able to talk about that more and feel comfortable and be able to go to people and get stuff like condoms, or like talk about how to get birth control, because like people know they can get birth control, but maybe they don't want to, like maybe they don't have a way to the hospital to go get that type of contraception or anything like that. So maybe that should be more discussed within schools. Like the school nurse should be able to talk about it with you and just help that, because even if you're pro-life, like that is something like that class like that could help you, like, and you could learn about it, like, and that just would help out way more with this problem and young women being pregnant. So I think that would be nice.
Thank you so much for just sharing so very candidly about this too. And strong health education is important. And I understand that we also, you're answering that question, what do students need that they're not receiving right now? So I appreciate that. Family and faith community, as well as our schools and our mental health supports, our physicians, all of this has to work together to be able to provide the kind of support all of our kids need. Appreciate it. Yes.
And another thing that I think we haven't really talked too much about in public schools is vaping. And I think that, we've been keen on constantly saying how we shouldn't smoke and do drugs and drink, but vaping and e-cigarettes have really become the new thing. And I think public schools have been kind of slow to respond to it because so many kids, especially at my school, falsely think that it's no health problems whatsoever are caused by it when it's totally the opposite in truth. So I think that so many kids have turned to it, and it causes anxiety too. And I think so many problems in our public school system have arisen because we've been so slow to really try to get vaping out of the schools. And I feel like if we police that more and just educate kids more and tell them that this is not okay and that the lies that they've been told that it's totally fine for you, once we start really regulating that, I think a lot of the problems that have arisen will go away. But I feel like that's something that the public school system has overlooked, and I think that that's caused a lot of issues.
Thank you. And I think you might have brought that up before. And I want you to know I was in a school walking through the hallway and I saw a say no to vaping, and I thought of you because I know that this is an area that we really, well, and since we last met, there have been changes in regulation with Juul, right? So I think maybe education is a real key component that you hit on that helps with that. It's a start, step by step. Okay, who haven't we heard from that we could maybe hear some of your thoughts? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kiana Lazinski. I'm from Hominy Public Schools. I'm going to be a senior this year, and we've had a real, teacher and coaches problem. I think we have, 8 positions open throughout our whole schools of just being elementary or ECC or high school. And me being a senior, that, worries me. Are we going to get these positions filled? And, some of these are our core classes and stuff, so, what is going to happen with these kids? Are we going to get these, positions filled in these 3 weeks before school starts? And then, people are piling on jobs. I feel like our superintendent's going to be the head coach of 2 sports. So that's, is everything going to get done throughout our school and everything? And is everything going to be done properly? And that worries me with me being a senior, how is everything going to go? And then we're going back to our 5-day weeks. We've been a 4-day week school for years. So how are kids going to adapt back to that change? And everything from the young ages to us being seniors.
Wow, that's a lot. So this is kind of the time where there still are some openings. So be confident that your schools are working really hard to be ready for you. But we are in still a very severe teacher shortage, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But it can be solved. We have to have the will to do it, and we must. Everything depends on it. We can't have all of what we want in our state and in our communities without a strong education system in public schools. And so you all are carrying that message, and we have to boldly continue to talk on it, keep our foot on the gas, and bring respect to educators. Our teachers need to be paid for the professionals that they are in order to attract people into the profession, long while you're sitting in high schools thinking about, I want to be a teacher. And some teachers are even in their own family saying, don't do this, go in a different direction. We need to repair that so that changes. But then we also have to keep great people in our schools. And we have to be able to give them the support and the extra people on the team to be able to support the classroom. Because it's not just, if you think about it, with many years of budget cuts that have happened, starting later, 2010, and then it kind of continued on. You saw more people as they left the school not being replaced, and then it meant that the behavioral specialists or school psychologists or librarian or some of these school counselor positions, they moved into classroom teaching. And then those positions remained unfilled in some scenarios. So having more people on the team to support learning, more people helps keep teachers in classrooms and focused on students, because then they do have the other support that's needed as well, and they're not shouldering it all. It's complex, but we know how to fix it.
And I was thinking about this when he was talking about the vaping, because I'm from Little Axe, and drugs and alcohol were always a big problem in that high school, like they are in a lot of high schools. And I would remember in elementary school, every now and then someone would come in and talk about the dangers of that stuff. And everyone in the classroom would talk about how their parents smoke or drank a lot, and how, we were going to try and get them to stop, and we would never do that. But I don't remember ever hearing anything like that, like, since, like, third grade. So maybe add vaping to those conversations and just keep them going into middle school and high school.
Good. Start early. Thank you.
My mom was a teacher for like 12 years and she loved it, but she was also so mentally and physically drained after every single day coming home. Like she'd been putting up with kids for so long, she didn't want to put up with her own kids at some point. She just wanted to lay in her bed and be done. But teachers are so stretched thin because they have to be parents to kids, they have to be therapists to kids, and then they have to be parents to their own kids. And it's just so hard on them, and we're putting so much more pressure on them with all these other requirements that we want them to do. But like at my school, since you said something about the coaches, I realized almost every single one of my teachers is a coach. And to think about their schedule after they like teach for 6 hours, they have to then go practice for 3 more hours and then make time for students who need questions and help in other classes. And there's just so many problems and not a lot of ways to fix them.
And so their day keeps going. And the other thing that we hear when we talk with teachers in some of the schools, they don't have a planning period. So that's the time. Like, just imagine you're a surgeon and you start in the morning and you don't even have any moment there to just stop and think about what's coming next for the next day, how to prepare, study these particular patients and what they're going to need. It's just like rapid fire, and it never stops. And then we ask, well, why are teachers burning out? Well, they're burning out because, like you just described, they're having to take on other duties to boost pay a little as well, and because they care and they love kids and they want to be engaged in other activities, but it's also, how long is that sustainable? And so these are all things that we've really spent time studying and listening to. Again, we know how to solve it, but I loved how you described it because it makes it really, it comes home, right? These are people that have families, and we need balance for them to be able to endure.
And I actually don't really have like something to say specifically, but I do have a question.
Sure.
And this is in regards to like the vaping and the smoking issues that are going on in our public schools. Because I'm from Oklahoma City Public Schools. And so it's technically considered inner city urban. It's in like closer to downtown, sort of, kind of. And so I was just wondering if there are any laws in place or regulations on how far smoke shops, liquor stores, and dispensaries can be in a certain radius of the schools, whether it's elementary, middle school, or high school.
Carolyn?
So would you say that's like 2-3 blocks? How long? I don't know how far that is.
I would say a couple blocks, probably. The city manages, regulates that with distance to a school.
Well, I mean, I asked that question because like having those stores, those dispensaries, those liquor stores, smoke shop, it's so easy for students in my school to get access to those things. Doesn't matter if they're 21 or not. I know several students who have access to those things, and they get people to buy it for them. And so I just wonder if it's like something that us or at the State Board of Education or legislator could be more strict about, and how far these places could be placed. Because I know a lot of dispensaries are forming in different like deserted buildings and they're buying them out, and I know, so I just noticed that's a big issue in my school, and apparently a lot of other schools as well. And so I just wonder if that's something we could work on also.
Well, I think, is it something we can work on? Yes. Is it needed? Yes. And is it easy to solve? That's going to be the really tricky part, because what you're trying to solve is limiting access, maybe. And I think there's always going to be ways around that. But we know even I mean, in Oklahoma City, they have their Oklahoma Prevention Needs Assessment, and they really look at those results, and they find that when the Department of Mental Health partnered with them, that I think it was 25% of the parents were actually supplying alcohol for their own children. And so it became an education process with the parents that their frontal lobe isn't even fully developed until 25 or however, and that the early use of, consumption of alcohol will absolutely impair them, if they are abusing alcohol or it's introduced early. And so I think that what they found was finding where the source was and educating that group of people about how harmful that was. And that was a surprise when I heard that. I wouldn't have expected that. But it's like learning the context for where the root of the problems are and then addressing it is really the answer, I think. But thanks for raising it.
So back on the teachers, I feel like in our districts, teachers don't have a voice. They aren't being heard. They don't get to express their opinions. And if they do, they're not being taken seriously. The school board and administration makes the schedules and they do what they feel is right, whereas the teachers are the ones who know what needs to be done. And some of the administrations, they never spent any time in the classroom, so they have no idea what a classroom setting looks like, and so they're making these big choices without fully understanding what's going on. I mean, I feel like just having, something like this, but with teachers, to get a true teacher perspective on what they feel like needs to be changed.
Every voice matters, right? And so we do have to have ways to do that. At the state level, we do have a teacher advisory, but of course that is a very small representation of the whole. Where it's really needed is at local schools or local district levels. And we're hearing some of our districts are doing some of that. I think that's important to work as partners, right? And yet, I appreciate your point because we know that if we will listen, ask questions, it can impact decisions. I've heard it said of someone that's a teacher in Tulsa, and they like to say, not about us, without us. And I like that saying.
My mom was a teacher, and she recently quit within the past year. She was a SPED teacher. And I feel like that has, at least in my school district, has been like an issue, especially when she used to teach at one of the elementary schools, and she would come home and talk about how other like certified SPED teachers I feel like a mistreatment of like SPED students is an issue, especially when it comes to not completely understanding like disorders. I feel like there is a test obviously to be certified and you get like a broad understanding of all the students that you might get, but I feel like there needs to be like more specific ones, especially with like high functioning, like autistic students, high functioning, like Down syndrome students. And I feel like it's just, there isn't enough understanding going around because one of the stories that my mom told me is like there was a student who was having like almost a meltdown, and instead of, I feel like, taking the right precautions to help him be safe and help other students be safe, he was just locked in a classroom for almost like 2 hours during the day because they couldn't calm him down, or not couldn't, but they wouldn't. But I feel like there should be, I guess, more comprehensive training for specific mental disabilities.
Absolutely, and that is tragic to hear. Yet, what you're describing, Gracie Ann has mentioned also, is the shortage of teachers, right? Well, the shortage in special education. You can't have an emergency certified teacher. So you know what happens? We have long-term subs. And yet that may or may not have come with any type of training that's required. This is a real issue. We have a severe shortage with special education students and their education, and this is something that everyone should collectively be worried and alarmed by. But I thank your mom for what she has done. I'm sorry we lost your mom, because we probably really, really, really need her. But this is the kind of scenario that's repeated over and over. And if our lawmakers and our leaders in the state don't take this seriously, it doesn't get better on its own. But it can. It can. It can be reversed quickly if we actually invested the way we need to. Jonathan.
I want to touch on something that you were just talking about student and teacher voice. This experience right here, for me, has been incredibly empowering, being able to raise issues that I care about, my peers care about, my teachers care about, but we only meet 3 times a year.
Yeah. And
so something I have grown to love the concept of, and I've been thinking about over the past few weeks, and I'm not sure, I don't know where she went, if there is legislation calling for this or not allowing it, but allowing competent, well-versed students to serve on their school boards, whether as a voting or non-voting member. But I really enjoy what the state of Maryland does in this regard with their SMOB program, and other states like Washington, they have students from both halves of the state on their state school board of education. But I think if we really want to value student and teacher input, we need to allow them to serve on their local school boards, because yes, we can raise hell and issues just with public comments, but they genuinely won't take those into regard unless there's someone there constantly giving input on what the people in the classroom need. There's something else I was going to say this. And I'm sure most of us saw what happened with the Tulsa school board recently. I would like to think that if there was if there was an educator or a student on that board, also there to provide their input and what really goes on in the classroom, that things may not have gone down that way. So I think having a more interclassroom perspective on these school board meetings of people who either have never worked in a classroom, are popular in their local field, it can really bring a benefit.
I would love to see that. I think that would be powerful.
So while I was listening to the student panel earlier, although it was a great group, I do disagree a little bit with the direction that they were proposing. Although they did raise a lot of good issues that students need people to go to, I feel as though the solution is not to spread teachers more thin. Teachers are there to teach. They're not trained to be counselors. They're not your parent. They're not guards. I feel like a lot of this comes back to we need more funding in schools. And I know you're doing everything you can. A lot of great people are doing everything they can. But a lot of the points that we're raising are moot unless we can get the core issue solved, that there is a teacher shortage, and the solution is not to put more responsibility on the teachers that we have. Yeah.
I love that, though you said it beautifully. So you're right, and that is exacerbating the teacher shortage, because that stretches teachers thin. I think that there's also a slight difference, though, in every teacher can have a different, and I think this, you would probably tell me if you agree with this, but just the connecting person to person, knowing your name, asking how you're doing, giving you a smile. Some of our kids suffer a lot of trauma and abuse at home. And we know that through statistics that are really horrible to have to reckon with. We know that we have more incidents of child adverse experiences in our younger age group of children than in any other state. So we're really high on that list of kids that experience a lot of heartache at home that would break your heart. So our focus is to help teachers or those working in schools to begin to see not just a person in a classroom or a student, but to learn their story a little bit. And I think that connection can be what gives and fosters hope, that helps a student know that there's a caring adult in their life. And I remember one teacher sharing that she's got kids at home, they wake up, they have breakfast, they miss the bus, someone can take them to school. But that it struck her in her own class that for some of the kids she knows, when she greets them with a smile, it's the first time anyone's even spoken to them. And so there is that, right? That we know exists, and there's just a difference. So we are asking for our teachers to do a lot. We really are. But I think part of it is also a different way of viewing things. And as we realize the power in calling people by their name, in making sure that just, in little ways, how you doing? Saw you at the game or whatever. That those little bits. But I agree with you, teachers, we are not, and we should not expect teachers to be parents or counselors or social workers, but oftentimes it is the teacher who is reporting a suspicion of abuse or making a connection to social services. And so we do need to make sure, that's what, when I was talking about, we got to have more people on the team. That's the people that we're talking about. Those are the people that help our teachers persist so our students can. I'm so glad you said that. I think we may be at the very wrap-up end, so one last comment.
The panel was talking earlier about what they wanted their teachers to know.
Yeah.
And I feel like what I want teachers to know is, I'm not a perfect person. Nobody is. I've had my fair share of mess ups, not turning in homework, not doing so great on a test. But I want them to know that they don't have to be perfect too, because reality is none of us are perfect. And so if they mess up and they want our input, I would be glad to, give some to them. Because reality is most teachers don't ask for students' input, and that hurts my heart because I feel like they should, but they don't have to, present themselves in this perfect way. They can ask us for stuff just as we ask them.
Great way to close. Thank you so much. And you all just mean so much to me, and I know that you inspire those who are here listening. And we hope that they will have full hearts as they then head back into their own schools. But I wish you the absolute best as you wrap up the summer and get ready for the new school year or off to your colleges or post-secondary pursuits. You all give me hope. And I know Oklahoma's future is bright because of you. And I can't wait to see what you do next. All right? Have a great morning and the rest of the day. Take care.